2, 1. Okay, here we are back again. I think it's week 12 of the Premier League season. After an eventful week of European football, let's get straight into it, Mike. Our early game is Wolves at home to Spurs. What's your take on that?
I mean, Spurs were involved in a crazy match last weekend. Never mind about the result and the sending craziness of that. It's the injuries I would be more concerned from a Spurs point of view to halt their momentum. Very significant players to be injured. They're away now to a Wolves team who have found a bit of form overall. I'm going for a draw on this one because of both those factors, the injuries mainly, and it may well be that they're back, especially Maddison. I don't think is as serious as Pen or the fullback, but Wolves still have been playing well. They got a victory against Man City, so you write them off at your peril. O'Neill has them playing as a team, and they've got some good individuals, especially in the forward areas, that can cause problems. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw here.
Okay. To slide Spurs' progress. You're right. Spurs will be without Romero and...
Back to you. What do you think?
Yes. I was saying that Spurs will be without Romario and Uduguay, the Italian fullback, two very important players for them. And also Van de Ven, the centre-back, will be out. So that's their two centre-halves suddenly out of the game. Maddison should be back, but I think they'll miss those other three a lot, of course. Against Wolves, who hate the sound, or who will be very angry every time anyone mentions VAR. The last 2 weeks, they've had like 2 penalties against them, which really, I think, in my opinion, were not penalties. So we'll come to VAR again a little bit later on. So they'll feel a bit aggrieved. Wolves are a little bit like Brighton. They always score goals, but they also concede goals. They've scored 1+ in the last 10, but they've conceded. They only have 1 clean sheet in 14. So they score, but they also concede. And they are missing Neto. They missed him because they lost to Sheffield United, like the division's kicking team, you know? So Spurs, I'm actually with you. I think Spurs are going to miss their the players that they're out. Wolves will feel aggrieved and up for this one, looking to prove a point. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw at the Molineux as well. Mike, before we move on, can I ask you, what do you make of Ange's high-line tactics with down to 9 men, with pushing the defence up to the halfway line?
Ill-advised, especially if things go down to goal difference. Ill-advised, but for a while there, even at 2-1, Spurs had opportunities to equalise, and they were down to 9 men at that stage. It's only when they got to 3-1, I think, that they could have said, "Look, hold on, let's just not." We've tried to get the equaliser. We failed. Pull back, and I think you'll learn from that. He came out all brave, saying that's the way I play. And when there was 9 men and Chelsea had only just gotten it ahead, Spurs had a good chance to equalise before that third goal. At the third goal, I think they'll learn from it and say, "Look, we might have caught him once. We weren't going to catch him twice with our 9 men."
That's a very
so
good
they ended
point.
up losing quite a few goals and losing a decent, their goal difference got hurt more than it should have.
That's a very good point. I agree with you. I hadn't thought of that. I thought it was admirable.
I think he learned from that. He coming out with the bluster, saying, "Oh, that's the way I play," and but I think they'll learn and say, "Hold on, I was okay when it was 2-1 and 2-1 versus 3-1." But they were never going to come back from 3-1. Once that hammer nail came in, it was time to just try and see out the time and damage the imitation. And they didn't. And then, all the goals were in that extra time. Painted a different picture on the game than what it was.
I agree with you. I think that's a very good point.
And
The nine
so
men
anyway,
was
that's
admirable.
regarding that.
Lineman was admirable for the 2-1 because, like you said, if they had chances to equalise, and if they had and held on, people would have been saying, "What a masterstroke! It's amazing." But you're right. Once they
Well,
conceded
yeah.
the third, they should have dropped back. Then I agree. That's a very good point. Okay. Let's move on, Mike, and we're on to the 3 o'clock games. Maybe I'll start this one. Arsenal at home to Burnley. Arsenal, who lost to Newcastle, lost their undefeated run like Tottenham, disappointingly against Newcastle. Just my opinion on the VAR situation, the Newcastle goal. I actually support the officials on this one. I like what they're trying to do is that previously they're trying to trying to re-referee every single decision. I like how they kind of looked at each of the 3 ones and said, well, it's not a clear and obvious error, so we're going to just going to go with the referee's decision, whatever that may be. If it's not clear and obvious, let it alone. I think that's a very good way to go forward. And I think that Arteta, a lot of it, like they said, Martin Keown said, maybe he spoke a little bit too soon after the game in front of the cameras. A lot of it was like sour grapes a little bit. So that's the VAR issue. I agree with the officials on that one. In terms of the team, I've noticed that the Arsenal's team is not as strong as it was last year. They've actually the starting 11 is weak because you've got Havertz, okay, and Nketiah in now. So they've lost Partey and Xhaka, who were there last year. So Arsenal starting 11, not a mind about their squad players, which are not good. I think Arsenal starting 11 is not good when you've got players like who's out, Partey is out injured, and Jesus is out injured. I think that will go against Arsenal in the long run. But tomorrow, playing at home to Burnley, who are not doing well at all, right? They're the first team to lose first 6 home games. They've lost like 5. They've lost 6 out of their last 7 games. They've only scored 2 goals in the last 5. They'll probably sit back on Arsenal, but they're making too many mistakes in the defense. So I'm going to go for Arsenal to win this one 3-0. Mike, can I ask you, Mike, what did you make of Mike, of the decisions, the Newcastle's goal, the VAR situation there?
I think that the one I would have the most probably query about is the potential foul from the guy. Like the ball, the technology is there. There's often the whole curvature of a ball has to go out. We've seen that in World Cups. It's not a disgrace. It's just that it looks like the ball has gone out, but we always say you play to the whistle. So that one doesn't stand to me. It's the hands on the back. It's on another part of the field that's given as a free. It's an easy one, but then again, it would be a very hard way to disallow the goal. And so the player said there wasn't enough contact to overrule the ref. I think the biggest issue really is Arteta's rant. I mean, there should be consequences. There's been consequences for other managers. They're saying they're up and down on these kind of things, bringing the game into disrepute. But I think Arsenal's statement coming out, I know you say support your manager. It should have been more what Keown said, saying, look, that maybe we're going to review the timing of press conferences to give a time for a clear head to calm down. Either way, you can't be coming out with these over-the-top comments, and all analysis, when they've microanalyzed it down to the nth degree, are still supporting the decisions the VAR people made, which just kind of, the words that were used about it being a disgrace and an embarrassment. The biggest embarrassment right now would be on himself.
Yeah, I agree.
Sometimes you've gone out and Arsenal coming out to support him. I can understand, but look, he should get at least a 2 or 3 match ban and sent to the stands for 2 or 3 games to send the message that coaches have to be careful. They're getting yellow cards during the game. they have to be careful in what they say afterwards, within
Fair.
reason, to bring the game into disrepute.
Okay.
And I don't think Arteta should expect it, and I don't think he should complain if he gets it.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on to the game, just like you, I have 2-0 for Arsenal. Why? Because Burnley are that bad. And they're at home. Like, to be fair, Arsenal had a good victory, a solid victory midweek in the Champions League. And so the quality is there versus Burnley. I agree with you as well. They're not clicking. Martinelli he's not playing to the high level that he was playing last season as well. It's kind of hot on and off, hot and cold. So he's not always playing because where last year he was a shoo-in and he was getting goals and assists aplenty. So yeah, not only are some key guys missing from the middle, I think one of their most creative players isn't quite playing at the level that he was playing last year. But too much for Burnley. So I'm going to move it on. Crystal Palace versus Everton. Crystal Palace have surprised me this season in a positive way, and I expect that to continue. So I'm going to go for a home victory. Crystal Palace 2, Everton 1. Just Hodgson has got a better balance of a team going at the moment. Everton, you sometimes look, where's the goal going to come from? Give me the stats to say why I'm correct.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with you. I think Everton are going to win this one 2-1. Oh, this man is gone. Let me just pause the recording there momentarily while we wait for Mike to resume. So we're back with Mike again. Just my take there on the Everton. So I'm going to disagree with Mike. I think Everton are going to win this one. Just a few things. Crystal Palace have a poor record against Everton, only one win out of 17 games. So the Palace will be happy that Eze is back. Of course, he will be important to them because they found goals difficult to come by. They've only scored 4 home goals all season. And at the same side, they've only conceded 5. So Selhurst Park actually is the ground with the fewest goals. I've been quietly impressed with Everton. I like what they're doing. Pickford is kind of getting a bit of form. You've got Braithwaite and Tarkowski. What is it? Tarkowski are kind of solid in defense. They've got Onana, who actually may need a fitness check before the game. And Gueye, right, in the midfield, which is quite strong. Up front as well, they're playing Doucouré and Calvert-Lewin.
What about Ashley Young?
Ashley Young, okay, is a weakness, all right, for his age. He's a professional player, but yeah, they need to find a replacement there. Seamus Coleman will be a good addition once he comes back again from fitness. But Everton, yeah, they're playing direct football. Doucouré and Calvert-Lewin are connecting well up front. I like Everton at the moment. They've won 2 out of 3 of their last away games. Last season they only won 2 in the whole season, so there's definitely improvement there. And Palace, okay, they beat Burnley the last time, so they've got their 3 points, so maybe they can relax a little bit. So I'm going to go for Everton to win this one 2-1. And that will take us on, Mike, to Man United's home game against Luton. Will I go with that one for a start? Okay. United again, okay. Tragedy, losing to Copenhagen, Rashford sent off, conceding 2 goals in injury time in the first half and then going ahead and then losing 2 again. It's terrible. I almost feel sorry for the coach because he seems like an honest enough guy. So that'll be interesting. Do you think that his job is under threat?
I don't think it's under threat this season. There's no one jumping out at me that they'd hire. Conte maybe, but they've gone through so many names. I saw something bandied about Zidane, but realistically, they need someone who knows the Premier League. So I think they should stick with him for this season. I'm enjoying it. I certainly don't want him to be trying to take Emery from Aston Villa or someone who actually might do a job there.
Yes. Okay. Let me continue with my prediction. Okay, I'll come back to you on your take on the game. So, just very briefly, United have lost 5 home games this season. It's their worst since 1930 for their first 10 games. But an interesting stat: if Ten Hag, if he wins this one, he'll be the first manager to win as many as 30 in his first 50 games. So that's an interesting stat that he could be performing better at the start. That's obviously his results from last season. We'll take that into account. Luton had a very good result against Liverpool. They were dogged. They frustrated Liverpool, who have had 2 bad runs, 2 bad games now. We'll come to them later. Luton have no clean sheet in 11 in the Premier League. Barkley is playing better, playing deeper. I like on Benny, the Irish guy. He's tough on one wing. Townsend has come in as a sort of a free transfer. He's giving good value for giving good value for being free, but he's doing okay there. But I still I think that Man United though still we should beat Luton at home on this one. I'm going for 2-1 to Man United. They probably will concede.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, look, we'll come to Liverpool later, but yeah, Luton, there's huff and puff, but there isn't a lot of smoke coming out of them. United, with all their travails, this is a game that they should be looking at 3 points. 2-0 I'm going for on that one. So moving on quickly, we'll go to Bournemouth, probably one of the worst teams in the Premier League at the moment, against Newcastle, who are kind of gotten like great back to earth, good result back to earth. So they would have been buyed for the victory against Arsenal, but then Dortmund promptly taught them a lesson midweek about what Champions League football is about. However, playing Bournemouth, the way they're playing, the form they're in, I think is an ideal game to come into after a European midweek game. And I fancy Newcastle to do the job here. Not spectacularly, but solidly. A 2-0 victory to Newcastle. With Trippier is back among the assists, so I expect him to swing in across that someone will get on the end of either from a corner or from open play.
Okay.
Keep him off.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm also going for a Newcastle. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think 1-0 Newcastle might creep it in. Bournemouth have only won one out of their last 15 Premier League games. Scott, who came back and was giving them a bit of presence in midfield, is out injured again, it seems. But talking about injuries, you have to consider for Newcastle. It's crazy. First of all, Guimaraes will be out suspended. Wilson is a doubt for the game. He came off at halftime against Dortmund. Also out is Botman, Byrne, Murphy, Isaac, and Barnes. So a crazy injury list for them there. But I think that they have enough to win against a poor Bournemouth team. What I do want to say is I watched the Arsenal Newcastle game, and I want to give credit to Eddie Howe, because we spoke before about looking at their team sheet. There's nothing amazing on that team sheet, but when you've got a coach coming in, you talk about can they develop the players, and you've got players like Longstaff and Joe Linton who were ridiculed, before he came in, and now they're looking like solid players. Mentioned about Longstaff going for England and so on. You compare him to Arteta. Has Arteta improved any player? Nketiah, all those other players? I think no. Arteta is good for like having a system, and he can buy players, bring players in, and put them in with quality. So I've got great respect for Eddie Howe, what he's done for Newcastle with those players. And I think that they'll win this one. What do you think about Eddie Howe versus Arteta?
I hear a lot, like even looking this season, and you see Gordon, who kind of was mooted with Everton, and he's really beginning to blossom, and you see kind of where this potential that they're, instead of him just being a mouthy footballer, throwing dives and looking for frees, he's actually playing. He's playing for the team. He's playing with the team, and he's contributing quite a bit. And yes, I agree. Howe deserves a lot of praise. I always wonder when the manager versus a coach, how much he's getting and how much does he involve himself in the into Monday to Friday training. I know some managers don't; they just get into the as you say, the more the tactics and strategies, maybe some certain plays, but they don't really involve themselves into day-to-day coaching. I suspect Howe does. I suspect Arteta doesn't. Probably like Guardiola doesn't get that involved every day, but looks at more the boss end of things. I could be wrong. I don't know the answer. But yeah, I mean, like the question I say, would Howe be a good match for someone like United? And I'd be slow to say yes, in sense of just having that money and what he would do with it. Now he's shown with Newcastle a lot of restraint. Maybe that's the owners have come in and said, "Okay, we have the money, but let's do things by degrees." But either way, it seems to be a very good union between owners and the manager that they have now, and whatever coaches, whoever does the training. Newcastle are definitely playing above the sum of the parts. The team play above the sum of the parts. Okay, let's get on back to the football though. Anyway, so we both think Newcastle will win. Aston Villa versus Fulham. You go first there.
Okay.
What's your reckoning?
Yeah, Villa, they won midweek against the Dutch team. They had a surprise loss away to Forest. Then Villa seemed that way. Like suddenly they're playing amazing, but then they just lose like 2-0, or they lose. They're just not in the game at all. That's kind of a strange one for me. They have been amazing at home, but one thing is that they only have 2 wins in 10 games away. So they haven't been playing great away, but this one will be at home, where like they've been really, really strong. And I fancy them to beat a poor overall Fulham team. You take out Willian, Palhinha, and that, they're the core of that team there. Fulham only 1 win and 6. They can't score goals. I think Villa should be back to winning ways on this one, at home especially, with a very strong 2-0.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've gone for 3-1 Villa, and I suppose your only query is where do you see Fulham scoring that 1 goal? I have it down simply because Villa, as you say, can switch off. They've had their moments where you go, what are they doing? And in their last 2 games, so and Palhinha and them, if they're playing, will drive them forwards up to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, Villa have much more quality, and as you say, their home record is good. So I'm going 3-1. So I'm moving on quickly. Brighton are at home, another team like Villa, hot and cold. You see which Brighton will turn up or which one you get. They're at home to Sheffield United. Brighton need a victory here, just to get they had a good start to the season, and it's kind of been derailed with a lot of mediocre results. They've got a win there in Europe, and they are at home against a team that up until last weekend were the whipping boys.
That's what I was looking for.
So I expect Brighton to win, but I've only put in a 2-1, and that's only because of playing the midweek, and also the fact that their form and their morale mightn't be as high, their confidence wouldn't be as high as what it should be. So I'm going for 2-1 to Brighton on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I have exactly the same score, 2-1 to Brighton. I think Brighton have lost so many players since last season that are trying to bringing in a lot of new young players. And midweek against Ajax, those young players looked really good. Fati is really coming into form, and he's linking up with another guy called Adringa. The two of them look really good, very exciting. It's in defence that Brighton seem to be a little bit more vulnerable, and they score, but they also concede goals. Sheffield United, though, okay, they had a win last week, but they just don't have the quality. I like Archer up front. I think he has potential, but I'm going to go for Brighton, even though it's the Thursday, Sunday kind of. It'll be a quick change for them. I still expect them to have too much for Sheffield United, 2-1 as well.
So go ahead there with the Liverpool game.
Liverpool-Brentford. I think this should be a very exciting game. I think Brentford are looking good at the moment. They're very solid. The 3 they have in defence, they're looking good. Mopé is finding form. He seems to be happy. He seems to be getting his confidence back. Mbuemo up front is good. They've won like 3 games in a row, Brentford, against Liverpool teams that seem to that they just seem to kind of switch off against Luton. Maybe they thought it would be an easy game, but they weren't focused. They missed a lot of chances. Same against Toulouse, even though probably Liverpool rested a few players, but they seem to be not focused. So there's a chance here for Brentford, maybe for an upset. One thing is that Toulouse and Luton had a low block against Liverpool. I expect Brentford maybe to come out a little bit more. Oh, we lost Mike again. Just pause that. I think just to say, guys, I think that it should be an entertaining game. Maybe 2-2 for this one. Maybe Liverpool might sneak a 3-2, but I'm going to go for 2-2. Oh, sorry, guys. Mike's Wi-Fi must have it doesn't seem to be connecting well, so he hasn't come back on yet. So only let me just maybe go through the last 2 games. He may come back in the meantime. Let's continue on. West Ham at home to Forest. West Ham, who had a win midweek in Europe against Olympiacos. A controlled game by West Ham, always seemed to be in control of the game. Olympiacos, not as dangerous as they were in Greece in the first game, but still a good win, 1-0, which puts West Ham in a good position in the group. They lost to Brentford 3-2 in an exciting game last week. One player I've been impressed with West Ham is Kudus, the guy that's come in from Ajax. He really seems to have added depth to what was already a strong West Ham team. The one problem for West Ham, it seems to be, is conceding goals. They've conceded 20 already this season, which is the 4th worst in the Premier League. So it's strange for a Moyes team and for such a physical team that they have that problem in defence. They have to look at that. Against the Forest team, who had a good win, obviously against Villa at home in the City Ground last week, but they're just a different proposition when they're playing away. I'm going to go for a draw on this one. West Ham with the quick turnaround. I think Forest will be are much more organised this year, make it difficult for West Ham, who also will have a quick turnaround from the Thursday. So I just feel a draw on this one, 1-1 at the London Stadium. And that leads us to the big game, the last one, Chelsea at home to Manchester City. Chelsea will be have got confidence from the 4-1 win against Spurs. A crazy game in all different ways. Hat-trick for Jackson, that can only do him good. And Chelsea need it as well too, because they've had good build-up play, but just not able to finish it. And they need a goal scorer in that team. Man City, though, of course, for Man City, they're amazing. They just seem to be cruising through the league again, and seem to be on the way to the 4th Premier League title. And the secret of that, I think, is that they refresh the squad, they refresh the team. It's not like you have the same 5 or 6 core players who've won the last 3 Premier League seasons. They bring in new players who are hungry. For example, the young guy Bob. Doku is doing really well. Nunez coming in, Gavardio, Kovacic. They're hungry to get a Premier League title. And also you've got players like Foden and Alvarez, who were on the periphery in and out last season. They've got a lot to prove. And I think that they're doing it this year. Ake, Akanji as well too. Also players have kind of come in more recently in the last season or 2. So there's hunger there in the Man City team, and that's the secret of the old Liverpool teams. Bob Paisley, a great coach, used to always say for Liverpool, the time to buy new players or replenish the squad is when you're at the top. And that's what City are doing, and great respect to them for that. So I'm going to go for City to win again, 3-1 maybe on this one. Although the last 4 versus City, the result has been 1-0. So there's been a history of low-scoring games. And Chelsea not a good at home record. They've lost 8 at home in this year. So I just think that City will have too much for them. Okay, guys, a little bit maybe overtime on this one. Sorry that we lost Mike. I'm sure he'll be back again to join us next week. All the best and enjoy the football.